common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. A right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Right, Jose?
Absolutely, Bob.
Yeah, you know, hey, Jose feels so strongly about the right to keep and bear arms that he's producing the show today. Yesterday, Daryl stepped in to fill the breach. I'm very thankful that Daryl was able to do that. But we got the old almost the original team back on the ball field again, don't we, Jose?
They're all here.
One way or the other.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
We're all here.
All right.
Good to be back.
Okay, so some things never seem to change. As usual, I'm having a difficult time getting on Facebook. What else is new, right?
Yeah, I think a quick refresh will do.
So
doing the same thing here.
Is everything working today? Are we going to have a halftime show with our favorite governor, Jose?
We're going to go the full 10 yards, yes.
Yeah. Rogues Gallery.
Rogues Gallery.
All right. Doesn't get any better than that, sports fans. It kind of brightens up our Friday because, you know, Friday is our least favorite day of the week here on Tall Tales because no Tall Tales on Saturday, no Tall Tales on Sunday. So we go 70 hours, 70 hours with no Tall Tales. It gets about Saturday noon, and Jose and I are starting at Jones for Tall Tales. But we make it every weekend. We're always back here on Monday, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So let's see what we got here for Jemmy Ekotny today. Yeah, I got to pull it up on my iPad today. Just give me a second here. I didn't print it out, so start it off. Yeah, Jose once again saves the day. Yeah, because I can't even get it on my iPad. So here we go. GVB woes. Time to end the drama and move forward at the agency. A general membership meeting today of the Visitors Bureau is scheduled. On the agenda, certification of quorum, election of directors, and adjournment. Not quite. Because the only thing that they did at the general membership meeting was elect the directors. And then the directors were supposed to meet at 1300 today I'm sorry, we did elect directors. Yeah, my bad. We did elect directors this morning, and then the directors are going to meet at 1300. Going on with the editorial, it seems like a simple enough lineup, but for the last year, the Bureau has been immersed in drama that shows no hint of abating. Early in 2022, GVB President and CEO Carl Gutierrez accused board members of violating the Open Government Act and of acting unethically, voting for Bureau programs that benefit their businesses. After hearing the accusations, the board voted to suspend meetings. Since then, the GVB board and management have been at an impasse that has only deepened in recent weeks. A number of board members, including Chairman Milton Morinaga, Managing Director of PHR Ken Micronesia, have stated their intent to resign. There is confusion over who is on the board of directors and who's not. During a membership meeting in early January, a lack of quorum postponed the vote on a new board and ratification of bylaws. At a January 31 board meeting, punctuated by harsh words between leadership, there weren't enough members for a quorum. A legislative oversight hearing was canceled 2 weeks ago as the rift widened to engulf lawmakers who also disagreed about how to solve GVB's problems. A board meeting and a general membership meeting scheduled for February 13 were both canceled. Fortunately, tourists continue to come to Guam, with the month of January setting a record for post-pandemic arrivals. It's a good bet that none of the 56,683 visitors recorded in the preliminary numbers were concerned with GVB's internal struggles. They just wanted a nice vacation. But those of us who live here need to be concerned with the agency's actions because our economy relies on tourism and we need to be able to compete with other destinations. GVB board members and managers have to be on the same page to coordinate projects and marketing efforts. We hope that the managers of GVB and the new board members can find a way to heal the wounds of last year when the tourism industry is strong and all will benefit. Well, they did it today, Jose. They actually wrote a real editorial. I don't have a printout copy, but I'll just mark it right here. A holographic blue star. There you go, sports fans. The Daily News actually got a blue star. And that takes them up to 87.5 blue stars. Candid News, 262, Post 262, Candid 10. The Post has been on strike for about 4 months now, so I guess we got to just count them out of the game. Let me try once again to see if I can find Facebook book here. Well, I found it on my iPad. Unfortunately, I'm just as ugly on my iPad as I am on my desktop. Let's see here. Refresh. Still not there. Try one more thing here. It's kind of rainy out today, Jose.
Cooled the whole island down until it was time for me to get back in the car. But I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
How was the fishing at Lake Areola?
You know what? We should have had one last beach party at Lake Areola. Lake Areola has disappeared. Yeah, they paved Lake Areola and put up a highway. That'd make a nice song, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been done. Parking lot.
So Lake Areola is no more. It's a nice black-topped road leading off Marine Corps Drive up Challen Lahuna. So I suppose I ought to send a letter of congratulations to the founder of Lake Areola. Well, it looks like I'm just having nothing but trouble here. I've got a couple of posters, but I'm getting nothing but a Nanbo commercial. Wait a minute. Let me see what happens if I close that. I don't know, Jose. Are we on Facebook? I guess we are.
We're on, but I'll check in on the at the bottom of the hour.
Okay. All right, so I really appreciate your Facebook comments, and now I don't even. Yeah, I've got Lonnie Salas, and or is that no? That's from yesterday. Yeah, well, we'll just have to stumble forward without Facebook. Let me take a peek at the calendar, at the card, and see what we've got on the card for today. Obviously, we've got systemic racism, and I've got another, I've got the last chapter of Cowboys and Indians. Remember yesterday we had Sasheen Little Feather and Iron Eyes Kobe? Yeah. Well, we've got the premier Indian player of all time today. I know you're already thinking, who is Bob? You know who I'm talking about.
I'm wondering.
Yeah. So we've got systemic racism, and then we're going to pay one more visit to Chris Duenas' Victory Lab on Bill 52 because we have started the roster of quarterbacks. First game of the year, and we've already got 3 quarterbacks.
We just got finished with the Super Bowl, and already.
Already, yeah. I guess and none of them are old timers. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean. But so there are no Tom Brady's in the quarterbacks here. So we got that, and then we've got the members at the GVB meeting this morning. I went to the GVB meeting so I can actually give you an on-the-spot, in-person report. I've got Chief Ignacio versus Captain Santos. I've got Tom Woods versus racism. And here's an unlikely pairing, Julian Jansen versus working people, as though he knew any. Then we've got McNinch versus abortion, Vatican versus McDonald. So that's today's card. Starting right out with systemic racism. And again, I think everybody knows what I mean when I'm talking about systemic racism. We all know that the rice is orange. We all know that the narrative says, no, it's not orange, it's red. Your eyes will tell you. I was going to show this one yesterday, but we didn't have the side camera. So here, this is a really good demonstration. You see the words O-R-A-N-G, but the letters are red. So the narrative is red, even though the facts are orange. And then we reverse it where the color is orange, but the word is red. So in other words, the analogy here is this, that so often current affairs of the day, politics, government, sex, society, you name it, there's a narrative out there that's exactly opposite of the facts. A good example, someone born with 2 X's and male plumbing will always be a man, will always be a male for the rest of his life. That's the observable, absolutely provable truth. But the narrative is, oh no, that's not the case at all. Sometimes a woman is imprisoned in a man's body. And if that person really wants to be a woman, zap, he is a woman. And therefore we have to put Kotex in men's rooms, and we have to prepare maternity wards for men to come in and give, all this silliness that goes with it. Because that's the narrative. And if you step forward and say, that's BS. The truth is a man is a male will always be a male. You're branded a homophobe. You're antisocial, etc. So that's why I hang on to Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. So yesterday I got into a situation where identity politics runs into systemic racism. Because, identity politics gauges a person not on who, what, or what he is, but on what identities he belongs to. Now, we all belong to at least one identity. In fact, I only have one, and I am the only one in the entire world that has this identity. Give thanks out there, tailgaters. I am the only Robert Klitzkie in the entire world. We have a merciful God. And that is my identity. Now, if you've had the good fortune, where's your horn today, Jose? If you've had the good fortune to shake and howdy with me and chat me up a little bit, you'll know that, I'm just who I am, and I'm not anybody else. I've never been anybody else. I never wanted to be anybody else. But I am who I am. I am not my color, such as it is. I am not my sex, such as it is. I am not my strange proclivities, such as they are. I'm not my ethnicity. I'm just who I am. I'm me. And actually, there are now 8 trillion people in this world who share that same trait with me. Not the same identity, but the same trait. But if you're a neo-Marxist or a cultural Marxist, you'd say that's BS. You're trying to get us to believe that the rice is orange again, aren't you? Because we know that race is everything. That especially in North America, because America has committed the crimes of white supremacy and systemic racism. So that if you are not a white supremacist, if you're one of these other several intersectional characters, the top of the ladder is to be a white female. The worst you can be is a white male Christian, or maybe a white male Jew. That's pretty bad too. The best you could be is probably a man who is a transgender pretending to be a woman who is homosexual of any color other than white. Doesn't matter. That's the top of the intersectional ladder. So if you're somewhere, and you need to find out where you fit, because all of your activities must be governed by where you fit, what you say, what you believe, what you do, etc. And you must always defer to someone higher on the ladder to you, and you must always go out of your way to diss people lower on the ladder than you are. That's cultural Marxism. And it is Marxist because the object with Marxist of every stripe is to discourage people living in a capitalist society who have a good life. You got to convince them that the truths that they've relied on really aren't truths. It's red rice. And that they really don't have a good life because of all of these inequalities, racism amongst them. So you've got to stick with that. And if you believe in critical race theory, you would hold that there can never be an end to systemic racism so long as there are white people. So what you got to do is engage in anti-racism, which means do everything that you can to disadvantage that group and advantage the other group.
It's not enough to be against racism.
No.
You have to be active. And if you're white, you have to flog yourself.
Exactly.
And if you're Latin, you cannot claim that you have any whiteness in you.
Absolutely not. Just that if you have a
Lots of rules.
If you have a Hispanic last name, right, and your parents are from Madrid, and they're as white as the driven snow, you are a person of color. There's no getting around it. Yeah. I guess that's why I was a little disappointed in my name for a long time. I really get tired of spelling it because it's easy to say and hard to spell. I didn't learn how to spell it till I was in my early teens. But, at least I don't have any ethnic conflicts here. You hear my name, you're saying that guy can't possibly be a person of color. So I'm just branded with it.
Well, my last name, people kept giving me their former clothes to clean.
Okay. So yesterday we got into Iron Eyes Cody and Sachin Littlefeather. Iron Eyes made a career out of being an Indian, even though he was actually Sicilian and German. And Sachin represented Marlon Brando, who did not show up for the Academy Awards in 1973, even though everybody knew he was going to get it for portraying Vito Corleone in The Godfather. But he sent Sachin Littlefeather, who said Marlon doesn't want it. He's protesting over the crummy way that Hollywood treats Indians. You know, and then she was the biggest hypocrite in the entire room. And you gotta figure that Marlon knew it. So is Marlon just having a little fun with us? Or is Marlon as hypocritical as everybody else? So we had the junction, the intersection of identity politics and systemic racism. Last item on the list is the greatest racist of them all. Actors reinventing themselves has been part of Hollywood since the earliest days of the industry. Sachin Littlefeather and Iron Eyes Cody were part of a long tradition which seems generally harmless in an Indian industry that is, after all, about dress up and make-believe. But what about the latest fake Indian of note? Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. If you're not familiar with the name, I'll give you her naan querido, Pocahontas. Yeah. For 2 decades, Pocahontas Warren tried to game the system and academe by claiming to be a Cherokee. She initially denied having done this, but when Warren's 1986 registration card for the State Bar of Texas surfaced, and under race she had written American Indian. There's also a 1984 cookbook of so-called American Indian recipes called Pow Wow Chow. I don't think you can use that. I don't think you can say Pow Wow anymore, Jose.
That's not satire. That's real.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So if I said, well, during the halftime break, you and I can pow... Ooh, I could be canceled for that, right? Yeah.
And I can't say you'd be scalped either.
Absolutely not. Even
so I won't.
Yeah, and I'm not going to send you any more smoke signals on that one either, Jose. Yeah. And had nothing to do with the book had nothing to do with tribal cuisine. 2 were from a famous French chef of the 60s and 70s, and 1 was from a 1959 article, Better Homes and Gardens. So she's not only a systemic racist, she's also a plagiarist. No wonder she wanted to run for president. She's punched all of the tickets. Warren also listed herself as an American Indian when she taught at the University of Pennsylvania and at Harvard. Harvard listed Warren as an American Indian in its federal affirmative action forms from 1995 to 2004 and touted her, quote, woman of color status as a faculty member. Wow. She's so, in addition to everything else, she is so pale, so fair-skinned, you know.
Her red rice is white rice.
Exactly. Warren also listed herself as non-white in the Association of American Law Schools Director of Faculty. She probably would have remained an American Indian were it not for her political ambitions. Exposed as a fraud, she thought a DNA test might save the day by finding a fragment of American Indian genetic matter. She seemed to fear the worst, though, and instead of having an established outfit, such as 23andMe conduct the test, she had her own private expert analyze her DNA. Predictably, the hired gun said she could possibly be part American Indian, a whopping 1/1024, 1/1024. And people who understand this discipline said that's everybody in North America. Everybody is at least 1,000th Native American. But
we all get scholarships.
Yeah, we all. But you can't call yourself Pocahontas just because of that. So she alleged finding a victory. It quickly became apparent that makes a racist claim based on less than 1,000th of your DNA struck everyone as absurd. Another fake Indian bit the dust. So, you know, I thought that it would be good to expose Marlon Brando, Shasheen, and Iron Eyes Kobe, but that was just foundation for Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren, and she wants us to believe that she could be trusted as president of the United States. Now, if Joe Biden did something that outrageous, he would at least probably have forgotten about it by now and wouldn't try it again.
Well, the American people forgot about his.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same with everybody we elect that's like that. Marion Barry, the deceased Marion Barry, who was the mayor for D.C., incredible drug addict, and got caught a number of times and was incarcerated a number of times and was still reelected mayor after he got out.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of Rachel Dolezal, who was the head of the NAACP in Washington, who passed herself off as African American for the longest time. Yeah,
even her parents came out and said but she didn't care.
Nobody cared.
Yeah. You know, Jose, okay. I'm still trying to get into Facebook here. Hey, let's take a short break while I try to get into Facebook.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarahan, a house in Dedido, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, I want to add an op-ed here that ran in today's Daily Post. Since they aren't running editorials anymore, I'll at least mention them. This is by a guy named Solomon Stevens. Let's hope he has that kind of wisdom, Jose. And the title is "The War on Woke is Without Any Meaning. That's why it's popular." And he says right-wing politicians are on the warpath. They want to banish everything that is, as they call it, woke. Well, I'm on that side. The Florida legislature passed the Stop Woke bill, which is currently before the courts. Social media is rife with posts decrying the evils of, as Elon Musk calls it, the woke mind. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders accuses President Joe Biden of being led by a woke mob. It all seems right to me, Jose. People around the country want woke teachers jailed. The only problem is that the word itself has very little meaning. Yeah, and that's what makes the word dangerous. What do people think they mean when they use the word woke? A lot of different things. Some see it as a reference to the excesses of political correctness. I do. Others believe the word applies to anything that makes them feel guilty for being white. Well, I don't feel guilty, but I know that the attempts are ceaseless. Some see the word as a sign of gender confusion. I do. And others somehow see woke as referring to socialism, communism, or even fascism. I'll go with socialism and communism because the whole woke phenomenon is an example of neo or cultural Marxism. This would be funny if it weren't so serious. Almost everyone has heard of George Orwell's 1984. Not only have the folks who live in Wokistan heard of it, they look at it as a how to do it. It's kind of like How to Be a Neo-Marxist for Dummies by George Orwell. But he also wrote an essay that is less well known but extremely important, Politics and the English Language. In it, he discusses problems he sees with how we use language. And yeah, exactly. And
this guy's trying to flip the script, and it's not working.
Not working at all. Yeah. In it, he discusses problems in how we use language and how it is connected to our political life. We could use his help nowadays. Orwell points out that when we use sloppy, imprecise language, I don't. You'll notice that I even talk about the correct pronunciation of the word February and remind everybody that there are 2 words in the second day of the month, February. I pat myself on the back just the other day for that, I think, didn't I? Yeah. Let's see here. In that respect, he says, when we use sloppy language, our words can be both a cause and an effect. And that's why we don't talk about normalcy here on the show. It's sloppy. Our language becomes ugly and inaccurate because our thoughts are foolish. But the slovenliness of our language makes it easier for us to have foolish thoughts.
Now, Bob, you use the word normalcy as the one that's sloppy and ugly.
Yeah.
Because it's very subjective. Woke is not.
No.
Woke is very definitive.
It is.
This is incredible, this op-ed, but yeah.
And that's why I brought it forward. Yeah. People who don't know what they're talking about use an ugly and inaccurate word to express themselves, but using that word makes it more likely that our thoughts will become uglier and more foolish. The word woke has no clear meaning, but those who use it to condemn others, that doesn't matter because the word is just a way of announcing one's membership in a kind of club or gang. And the name of the club or gang is right here on my T-shirt. Can you see it? Let me put it on this camera. Yeah, I'm a tailgater. That's the name of the club, sports fans. Yeah, and there's very little tolerance for, there's a great deal of knowledge of what wokeism is, and there's very little tolerance for it. And then the editorial goes on to say it's a culture war badge. That's why I wear it on Fridays and Saturdays. And every time you see me downtown, I'm probably wearing my Tall Tales shirt. Yeah, there it is. I'm a tailgater and darn proud of it. Those who use it simply say they are unhappy with how things are today. That's a fact. and would like the world to change in ways they would like to see. Now, that's a terrible thought process, isn't it, Jose?
I think more precisely is we want them to stop telling us what we have to do.
Exactly. And the editorial, and then they seek others who share their general inarticulate uneasiness. That's why, as Orwell put it, words of this kind are often used in consciously dishonest way. Wow. In addition, the language woke is employed to vilify others. They are not simply wrong, they're enemies of civilization, which is true.
True.
Yeah, the Wokistan versus Western civilization. Yeah, goodbye Western civilization, hello Marxism. Those who are woke are portrayed as a threat to everything decent and good. But as Aristotle says at the beginning of his publication called Ethics, everyone wants what is good. The problem is that people disagree about what that is. Our country could benefit from a genuine argument about cultural issues. A general argument, but you can't have an argument with people who will silence you for not being politically correct.
And those people are woke.
And they are woke. Their greatest enemy is the concept of freedom of speech and things like the First Amendment. Our country could benefit from a genuine argument about cultural issues, but using woke as a catch-all term for bad things is not helpful. In fact, it contributes to political confusion and conflict, which is the object.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing more confusing than saying men can be pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy, you know, we ought to send this off to everybody who is not woke and say, you just got to recast it slightly and it can be your playbook. Orwell would caution us that deliberate imprecision in language cannot help us. We don't need vague, undefined words that serve only to demonstrate our opponents.
Like the definition of a woman?
Exactly. It's hard for people to respond to the charge of being woke when the word makes almost no sense. You know, if nothing else, Jose, I'll go back to Potter Stewart, former Justice of the United States Supreme Court, when I think it was a case where the publisher of Hustler, what was his name? It'll pop into my mind. It was the appellant in an obscenity case. And Mr. Justice Potter famously said, I can't give you a definition, but I recognize it when I see it. But, you know, we can give you a definition of exactly what it means. And examples abound in everyday life.
Larry Flint.
Larry Flint, yeah. The current war on woke isn't an attempt to take a policy stand. It's more like a version of standing your ground. Those who use the word as a term of derision see themselves as defending civilization against the forces of darkness. This guy he just gets it right over and over and over again, you know. He's batting about 1,500 right now. But neither civilization nor darkness is defined. And this is a classic example. The things we've always relied on, right? How many times in your 50 plus years has anyone asked you to define civilization, Jose? It's one of those benchmarks
that we all know.
That we don't have to be you don't have to be pedantic about it. You don't have to say, well, I think it's important we preserve civilization. Now, for those of you who don't know what civilization is, let me give you a 2-page, no. And that's exactly the point. To take everything that you're sure of, you know, that a man has only one X chromosome. I've been sure of that ever since biology class. You know, I'm not a biology class, but I did take biology. So I've always banked on that. And I don't really know that it's necessary to define what a male is, but they want you to say, if you can't define it, you in a heap of trouble there, boy. Yeah, to try to stop woke is nothing more than to cry to others who are confused to circle the wagons and to prepare to defend whatever they happen to cherish against whatever they fear. There you go. Yeah, I cherish freedom, liberty, freedom of speech, the United States Constitution, the American culture, Western civil, all of these things. You know, and I fear those who would try to destroy them with their wokeism. Our political life is not helped by the sloppy language we use, but Orwell is optimistic that politics can be improved by clarifying the language we use by eliminating what has become bad habits. If one gets rid of these habits, one can think more clearly, and to think clearly is necessary first step towards political regeneration. Boy, this guy's an optimist, huh? You know,
he can toss a word salad.
Yeah, he's turning. He's calling in an artillery strike on his own position. Is what he's doing. We can take a step forward, improving our political life by using language more precisely. And how many times have I gone into that on the show?
I don't understand wokeness, but I'm going to define what it is I'm fighting.
Yeah.
You know, this actually is an example, and I'm going to go against what he's talking about here, or I'm going to fuel what he's talking about, is an example of the wokeism. We're smarter than you. Mm-hmm. We know more than you guys. You guys have no idea what you're talking about. And when you try to define things, we're going to confuse you. We're going to gaslight you until you look like buffoons that you are. When all along, these guys are the buffoons because they use flowery language, academia, and word salads and make us feel like they're the smart ones because they know how to open up a thesaurus.
Exactly. Exactly, Jose. Very, very well put. Okay, let's go on to the next item on the card here, which is, members. Now, this picks up on, now let's take a short break and we'll come back to members.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
So here we go. Next item on the card is members versus Chris. And when I say members, what I mean is members of the Quarterbacks Club. Now, if you're a football fan, you know that there's something every quarterback has to be able to do. He's got to be able to pass the football. So generally, a quarterback makes his money as a passer, not as a runner. Some quarterbacks pretty good runners, just like some pitchers are pretty good hitters. But you don't get to be a major league pitcher because you're a good hitter. And you don't get to be an NFL quarterback because you're a good runner. Passers. So we have passers in the legislature, and we call them I called them quarterbacks because they would rather be football players than senators. Now, I'm going to take a little while to explain this. Once again, knowing that although Tall Tales has been on the air for I think 6 years now, yeah, there are still some who've just discovered the gold mine that is Tall Tales. So when senators vote on a bill, it's a roll call vote. Senators' names are called in alphabetical order. And a senator has only two options. He may vote aye or nay, yes or no. If a senator does not want to vote because he feels that he has arrived at the conclusion that he has a conflict of interest it would be unethical to vote on the matter, he does not recuse himself. What he does is he asks the chair to entertain his motion that he be excused from voting, and then he can explain why. If the body grants his motion, he doesn't have to vote. If it doesn't grant his motion, he's got to vote. He's got to vote yay or nay. If a senator doesn't vote, if he just sits there like a toad and doesn't vote, after 2 minutes, the recording secretary will record him as voting nay. So when it comes to voting nay, sometimes it's not what the senator does, Jose. It's what the senator doesn't do. Now, senators have gamed the system this way. They have gamed the system so that when a senator's name is called, instead of saying yay or nay, he can say pass. And he can say pass 3 times. And if he doesn't vote after the 3rd time and he lets 2 minutes elapse, the recording secretary records his or her vote as nay. Now, I'm only going to explain the strategy once, and then from now on, I will take quarterbacks at their word. And here's the way the game is played. Now, Chris Barnett is the first name on the list. So Chris Barnett, right out of the gate, he voted nay. He voted against this bill. And let's say that Chris Barnett had told Chris Duenas, a pair of Chris's there. Let's say that Chris's had cooked up a deal. This didn't happen, but this is how the system can work. And Chris says to Chris, I really need your vote. And Chris Barnett says, I don't want to vote for this bill. I've got good reason, and I'm going to explain my reasons. But I'll tell you what, if you really need my vote to get to 8, I will vote for your bill. I'll hold my nose and vote for your bill. But if you don't need my vote, I'm going to vote nay. This is how the game is played. Chris is first. So Senator Chris Barnett, pass. And they go all the way down to Therese Tetlahi on the bottom. And Chris Barnett gets to see how everybody passes, right? How everybody votes. So by the time we get to the bottom, there are 8 votes. And we come back and we start through the list again. Chris Barnett says nay. And he's got bragging rights. He tells everybody, I voted nay because. But Chris Duenas doesn't think Chris Barnett is a dishonorable man because Chris kept his word. Now let's say it goes the other way and we get down to the bottom and there are only 7 yay votes. Everybody else voted no. Comes back second time around, Chris Barnett votes yay. And Chris Duenas says, man, that was great, Chris. I know you didn't want to vote for it, but you are a man of your word. I really appreciate it. Parenthesis, I won't forget this. This is how the game has been played for a long, long time. I made all this up. None of these guys did what I said they did. But that's the way the game is played. So when you see a senator pass, you can assume that's the game. So we look at the roll call from Wednesday, and here's what we see. Chris Barnett, nay. Frank Blas, aye. Joanne Brown, aye. Chris Duenas, aye. Tom Fisher, aye. Jesse Lujan, aye. Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munga Barnes, aye. William Parkinson. Senator Sabina Flores Perez, pass. Roy Kanata, aye. Senator Jose San Augustine, aye. Senator Dwayne San Nicolas, aye. Senator Amanda Shelton, pass. Yeah, pass. I made a mistake on the card today, Jose. Yeah, so of all the senators who voted, 2 of them voted pass. So what exactly was Sabina Flores Perez thinking of when she passed, when there had been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ayes? Is she holding out for the other people to vote nay?
That doesn't make any sense, because it was her bill they were repealing, or her law, or how you.
Well, actually, she was against Bill 52. Yeah, because right. it repealed a key section of her bill. She wanted Munga Barnes to entertain her bill, which amended but did not repeal Bill 369 or Public Law 3, whatever it was. So it was in her interest to vote nay if she really had strength of her conviction. But she passed. And then we get down to Shelton. Now, by the time it gets to Shelton, everybody has voted, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 yeas by the time it gets to Shelton.
So why would she pass?
Why in the world would she pass? Now, if I were to use my imagination, the only thing I could think of, and this is silly, is to show solidarity with Paris. It just makes no sense at all. And then Tello Taitigui voted no. Tello is one of the 6 Republicans who said at the beginning of the session that they would block vote on important matters. I'm not going to use Tello's name and the word block in the same sentence here. I think you know what I'm thinking, Jose. So there you go. Why in the world would anybody pass on this? It makes no sense. If I were Paris, I would think this bill goes against what I've invested a tremendous amount of political capital in, and now when I get a chance to vote against something that's against my interests, I'm going to pass? So I'm not going to make this explanation anymore. If you remember it, fine. But to me, it's a sign of deviousness on the part of any senator that employs this tactic.
Well, for Senator Perez, it also indicates what kind of bill or law the original one was. Everyone thinks it's an environmental law.
Yeah.
And it's not. It was an anti-military law.
Absolutely.
So she's not going to go against the real environmentalists in this, who are actually the ones who wanted to repeal the law also.
Yeah.
Because it's not anti-military.
Enough.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Sachin Littlefeather and Hugh Hefner. Hefner gave her a chance. She and 5 other girls rode horseback naked, but it wasn't erotic enough, so Hefner wouldn't use it. Yeah, it's kind of the same thought process.
So it kind of revealed that's why she's not that strong with this bill or with the original law, but she's still, anything that can be anti-military is going to be good.
Yeah.
For her.
So then, from now on, this is my explanation. I'm going to take senators who want to be quarterbacks at their word. I'm not going to go through this explanation again. I will just look at that pass. The Senator Perez was so stupid, so lacking in interest. so far from being engaged to the process that she's engaged in that she couldn't make up her mind until her name was called a third time around. So this must have been how it happened. The recording secretary says, Senator Barnes, aye. Senator Parkinson, aye. Senator Paris, is it? I don't know. I pass. Let's break for the big halftime show. We'll have the Lulian Guerrero show after that, and then we'll come back to quarterback Sabina Paris.
Forensic genealogists are cracking the case wide open to uncover a stunning second mystery.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup.
Including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions
9
apply.
of the largest U.S. cities, there was no evidence that the mandates increased the number of people being vaccinated or reduced the number of COVID cases or deaths. But the impact on small businesses was devastating. In New York, more than 90% of restaurants reported a loss of customers, 3/4 of them reporting staff losses. Some experts say as a result of these mandates failing, people are left today with more doubt than confidence.
Fox's Griff Jenkins admitting it should have come sooner. Transportation Secretary Buttigieg visited East Palestine, Ohio Thursday, saluting the residents.
As they have gone through both this disaster's immediate impacts and the swirl of national and international and political attention that's come their way, their decency and resolve has been inspiring.
Secretary Buttigieg promised new rail safety regulations. Federal transportation safety investigators say an overheated wheel bearing may have caused that train wreck. While it may seem like the midterm elections just ended, the 2024 presidential race is coming on fast.
RNC Chair Ronna McDaniels announced Milwaukee will host a Republican presidential debate in August. The RNC holding to its recent tradition of having a debate at the same city where it's going to have its national convention the following year. The debate's expected to feature leading candidates like former President Trump and former Ambassador Nikki Haley, but as many as a dozen Republicans may be throwing their hat into the ring. The RNC expected to soon finalize a set of requirements to participate, including a rule calling for each candidate to pledge to support the party's eventual nominee. No pledge, no spot on stage.
Fox's Jill Nato, and I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
All 3 stations, all 3 morning shows. Thanks to all the listeners for Pika's Best, Choice Broadcasting has swept the top 3 best radio stations. The Point, Boss 104, and Star 101. Top 3 radio personalities, Kyle Mandapat, Ray Gibson, and Daryl Lizava. Put the power of Pika's Best to work for you. If you're an advertiser, call 671-888-7346 for information, rates, and packages. And let us get your message out to Pika's Best listeners with Pika's Best Broadcasters. And thanks for listening to Pika's Best. Looking for a new home or that special place to spend your retirement? Century 21 Realty Management has the place for you. Ladera Towers Condominium in Manila. Luxury living you deserve. Amenities like a gourmet kitchen, a large jacuzzi tub, private lanai with a magnificent ocean view, and 24/7 security. Other amenities, large swimming pool, couple of tennis courts, 3-bedroom condo units are available right now. This is an opportunity you should look at now before they're all gone. Call us now at Century 21 Realty Management, 647-5003, or visit the website, laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So, one of the most exclusive clubs on the island, Jose, the Tall Tales, the Tailgaters Rogues Gallery.
And it is growing.
Yeah, now it's probably so exclusive that it's hard to get in, right?
Absolutely not. It's
not.
So easy, Bob. If you're viewing this show via live stream on Facebook or YouTube, the link to the T-shirt is in the comments. Otherwise, for those of you listening on the radio, point your browser to thepoint.gu. Click on the picture of the T-shirt and the beard. That'll bring you to the purveyor. Order your T-shirt, put it on, take a selfie, and send that selfie to the Points WhatsApp at 671-797-8255, and you will see yourself in the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery.
Yeah, and what a prize it is. I'm in there. I'm even in there myself, Jose.
Twice.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's not so good, but anyhow.
Well, you are tall, so we had to put you in installments.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. Okay, we'll just we'll go to the Lulian Guerrero show, and then we'll come back to our quarterbacks club.
And members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Lulian Guerrero, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts and comments regarding Bill 195-32. I am aware that there is already federal legislation that addresses the issue at hand, thus making this legislation unnecessary. As I read the bill, what was glaring to me is that you are now walking into the realm of medical practice that is not your area of expertise. By passing this bill, you're saying to me that you are allowing a special interest group to say that you and they know better than the experts in obstetrics, family practice, pediatrics, neonatology, and medicine. By way of this bill, you have taken away the discretion, the responsibility, the acumen, and the judgment of that medical professional who is on the ground experiencing the circumstances and is more equipped to make the decisions. There are medical standards vetted through scientific research and medical knowledge that govern the practice of doctors and guide them in making their decisions. By way of this bill, you have said to our doctors, who are well respected and highly regarded in our community, we have no confidence in your ability. This bill not only diminishes the medical profession, but it further carries them to jail by criminalizing them if they refuse to abide by the mandate. By way of this bill, you have affirmed that doctor to have committed aggravated murder, and for that crime, we will put that doctor in jail for life. And by the way, they will rot in jail because you are not eligible for parole, work release, or educational programs outside the confines of prison. If this bill passes, we as a community, through your representation, will have mandated a government policy that ignores medical expertise and puts not only our doctors, but also our nurses, medical assistants, our physician assistants, and any health professional present at that event, and we're putting them in jail. These health professionals are treasures. They are valuable resources. We are working hard to recruit and retain them, and now we send them a message that they may end up in jail for practicing their profession. I know and truly believe, Senators, that this is not the route you want to travel. This bill is very anti-quality of life because it does not consider the expense that the family will incur as a result of mandating treatment that most likely will not result in a quality of life outcome for the infant. Instead, what this bill does is it will burden the family with enormous medical bills. On the conservative side, if care and treatment is given for a year, that family or the government, if the infant becomes a ward of the territory, will at a minimum pay $273,000 a year just on hospital room charges. This does not include pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and health professional time. So it will be $273,000 plus a year. This means taking away limited resources that could be used by others that may have a better chance of a quality of life. I know that some will say you cannot put a price tag on life and money should not be a factor. But the reality of the situation is the family, the government, does not have the human and economic resource to provide the care that is required to sustain a life that medical science will tell you is not living a quality of life. You struggle daily to meet the challenges of healthcare cost. We saw that with the hospital and health insurance debates that you guys made. And now this bill will further add on to the challenges when it does not have to. Lastly, I would like to make this comment. We all have a greater challenge in our island. The community's more concerned on how we can decrease our unemployment rate of 13.3%. We are very concerned on how we can work together to provide more jobs because our job growth has been stagnant over the last 5 years. We are very concerned about access to health care. We are very concerned that we are not screaming to the federal government to include us in the health insurance exchange so that we can have affordable health care to everyone. We are very concerned about how we can provide affordable housing to many first-time home owners. We are extremely concerned about the rising crimes we see today. People do not feel safe in their homes. Women are scared to go to the grocery stores alone because they fear that they could be robbed in the middle of the day. Employees do not feel safe in their work environment. Domestic violence is on the rise. Sexual assault of minors and rape cases are on the rise. You have in your campaigns pledged to work on these issues. You were all voted to help address these concerns. The issues you ran on were why you are my senators. Most of the voters did not vote for you based on whether you are pro-choice or pro-life. Please, let's get back on track to the more compelling issues at hand that have a greater impact to the quality of life of our people. I ask that when you are considering this bill to seriously consider the negative consequences of this piece of legislation that I have just enumerated. Please talk to as many people as you feel is necessary. Talk to the experts that can give you factual and objective information. I trust that you will do your due diligence, and I know that you will act in favor of the greater good of our community. And in so doing, you will arrive to the conclusion that this bill should not pass. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jose. There it goes. And I don't remember how many times we've run it, but every time we do, I'm always amazed at the callousness and the lack of self-awareness that would allow a person to come and publicly state for the historical record that she says that if a baby is born, we got to figure out how much it's going to cost, decide whether or not that baby should live under any circumstances.
And you're right. It's one thing to have this discussion among friends and have a healthy debate about it, because it is a discussion to be had so that there's understanding. But to go on record and to make a definitive stance that a baby born despite a failed abortion is less than human and costs too much money, and there are other matters in the world that mean more than saving the life of a single helpless human being.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Exactly. And to not only say it publicly for the record, but in a manner that leads you to believe that she is speaking with great conviction to those who probably haven't made up their minds because they're not as much on the ball as she is. And she's telling them why they got elected. And this abortion matter probably didn't weigh in the decision at all.
It kind of speaks a little about that woke op-ed that you read also, where you don't know what you're talking about. These doctors know more about what a human is than you do.
Exactly.
What a quality of life is than you do.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Well, actually, she's saying she's not denying that little baby lying on the operating table is alive and is a person. She's saying that's not the end of the story, because at that point you must then do a cost-benefit of analysis, weighing quality of life, possible quality of life on the one hand, and dollars and cents on the other. Now, if you were to use one of the ethical tests that's been advanced, we all know about the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Pretty popular test. And then there's always Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative, and the language is too complicated for me to state the premise without being able to read it. But what it basically means is this: if you want to be an ethical person, always act in such a manner that you would will everybody else in the whole world to act the same way. So if you never jaywalk, if you say, I think jaywalking is bad, if you're subscribed to the categorical imperative, you're saying no one should jaywalk. I would will it that no one jaywalks. Well, how about Lilian Guerrero? If we sign up for the idea that failed abortion is actually a human being, but that's only the beginning of the story, because we must determine the right to live of a human being based on the potential quality of life and the cost for maintaining that life, then you must mandate that for everyone in every circumstance. So, when you get up to be 84 years old, that comes pretty close to home, you know. It was a bitter pill for me to swallow that I couldn't go on and be as strong and active as I was when I was 49 as I can when I'm going to be 89. But everybody gets there. So if we're going to apply the Lulian Guerrero principle, when a person reaches a degree of infirmity, let's say a bedridden person who is perhaps blind, well, euthanasia, because that person is not going to have any quality of life, and it's going to cost a lot of money to keep that person alive. How about all these poor guys that get severely wounded on the battlefield, right? A little triage. This guy we can probably save. We'll take him back to the battalion aid station. This guy, maybe not. This guy for sure not. We'll kill this one. We'll see what we can do with this one in place, and we'll save it. There's just no ethical foundation for this kind of an attitude at all. And that's why those who are in favor of abortion can't talk about what it's really about, taking the life of a helpless, innocent human. They've got to talk about a woman's right to choose. They've got to talk about a woman's right to bodily autonomy, futures markets for birth control, anything but the real subject. Okay, another Tim wants to chime in on Lou's testimony here. Go ahead, another Tim.
Hey, good afternoon there, Bob. I need to make a slight correction to your comment before we came on the air. I wanted to make a comment about Lou's ludicrous testimony.
I like it, yeah.
I cannot believe that the people of Guam listened to this censor, myself here, and then voted for her to remain in office. I mean, one, what is her definition of quality of life? Caviar and baked Alaskan every night?
Well, if you can't be the president of a bank, you probably don't know another Tim.
Well, I definitely don't know what quality of life in her eyes. I know what quality of life is in my eyes, and that's waking up every morning with fresh breath in my air and new hope and aspirations for a better day.
Right now,
that's what
Right now, my goal is to remain upright and alternate feet on a daily basis.
Well, here's the thing that I really wanted to emphasize about the ludicrous testimony of the so-called governor is that it was a confession. It was a blatant public confession of how inept and incompetent her administration was in fulfilling its duties. She basically told the legislature and the people of Guam that crime was rising, that people were suffering, that the economy was desolate, and just the list that she went down and ticked every box, telling the people of Guam that she is incompetent.
Well, this was before she demonstrated her incompetence. She wasn't in office at the time.
She was laying the groundwork.
Yeah, laying the foundation.
Well, that is the problem. We are not any better.
No, we're not.
And yet she feels that she can accomplish more by killing more.
Yeah, that's kind of the pro-abortion's stance on things. You know, if we see families that are dysfunctional and children that are not given the proper parental care, the solution to that problem is just kill them before they're born, and then they don't become problems.
Well, it doesn't even go that far. If it's going to be a burden or an inconvenience, I think inconvenience is actually a better descriptive term.
Right.
It's going to be an inconvenience to the irresponsible mother, and I want to throw in father, because the father is just as equally responsible. if it's going to be such an inconvenience, well, let's shed a tear for the mother and the father, but let's not cry over the baby.
Exactly.
Thank you, Bob. You have a great weekend. Unfortunately, we're going to miss you tomorrow.
Okay, Tim. Good talking to you. Boy, there's something like parody amongst Tims, huh, Jose?
Yet another.
Yeah, I think I'm going to change my name from Bob to Tim. These guys seem to have it nailed down pretty tight. And let's see who else wants. Another Joe wants to talk about abortion. Tell me about it, another Joe.
Hey, Bob, I think the difficulty I have is when everything seems to be going the way to the liking of pro-abortion choice, that side, and they refuse to even entertain any possible limits, and they keep pushing the envelope for more and more killing. It's a culture of death. That is the thing that kind of gets me concerned, because I think we've seen it. We've seen they're going to keep pushing for more and more ways to kill babies later and later in the term, and we should not ever question it if that is their decision as leadership. So I think we have no choice but to address the issues. Although the question is how much of a conversation is appropriate, especially when we're talking about any exceptions whatsoever. When is it appropriate? Is it ever appropriate? And how much can we talk about it? You know what I'm saying? Come up.
I do.
So that's pretty much what I wanted to chime in on him. But I think it's been said that it's going to be one of those issues that's ongoing. So really, it needs to be addressed in an appropriate way constantly. And anyway, so that's pretty much what I want to say. And I'll miss you guys for 2 days. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, another Joe. Let me see. I got somebody else wants to chime in here. It's Francis. Is this Francis's second day on the merry-go-round, Jose? Good afternoon, Francis.
Senor, I wanted to ask you, what is the difference between a heartbeat and a 4.5-month baby that's completely formed? I'm lost here. I'm confused, and I just...
Yeah, well, in essence, there's no difference, Francis, because they are both humans. They're both helpless, innocent humans, and the natural law says that they have a right to life. They have a right to be born and to live every bit as long as they can with such failures and infirmities as they may have. And it's not up to anybody to take that opportunity away from them, Francis. So I don't see much difference. And I think that's the point you're making, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, right on target again, as usual, Francis. Always good talking to you. All right, let's head for Wrigley Field.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarajan, a house in Dededo, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Services that you choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
So here we are, second half, as you were, Wrigley Field, Chicago, world's most beautiful ballpark. And while we were standing up for the seventh inning stretch, I took a peek at Facebook, and we had some really good comments here. We start out with Roland Torres. Roland says, 53 years ago, JFK put a man on the moon. 8 years ago, Obama put men in women's restrooms. What an accomplishment, right? And then Rico Blancafor picks up. We're going back to what's woke and what's not woke. Rico Blancafor picks up and says the swimmer dude who thinks he's a chick named Leah Thomas is now dating another dude who thinks he's a chick. Does that make them male lesbians?
Who knows?
I guess so, huh? Consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, Jose. Okay, I wanted to just finish up on the quarterbacks here. We've got two new members of the quarterbacks club. We've got Sheldon, who was a member last time, wasn't she? She did it last time. And also Sabina Paris. They don't want to be senators. They want to be professional quarterbacks. So resign your positions at the legislature or acquiesce in my future treatment of you that you're just too dumb and too loose to be a senator, because if you can't make up your mind on how you're going to vote for a vote until your name is called, you have no business whatsoever in that august body. Quit and get out and do something you're better suited for. Okay, so much for the passers. Next, we've got GVB. GVB begins voting for 4 board members amongst the nominees. And I went, so I actually was on the spot this afternoon, and the meeting was at the Nico Hotel. Pretty good coffee. I can't say much else about it. Everybody who was pretty much anybody in the tourist business was there. So I had a chance to eyeball and do a little shake and howdying. And then when the meeting was called to order, Carl Gutierrez, the president of the Visitors Bureau, gave a pretty nice speech, I thought, given that he'd been at it with the board of directors, not all of the board of directors, but the elected board of directors, the 4 that are chosen by board members who are members of the industry. And the Carl kind of started this whole kerfuffle by saying, you guys are not complying with the open government law and you're feathering your own nests. After that, Joe McDonald, counsel for the Visitors Bureau, was tasked with doing an analysis of how the bylaws tracked the statute that created the Visitors Bureau, and McDonald found that in a lot of places they didn't. So the board was acting ultra-virus its authority, outside its authority. So Carl Gutierrez says the president was a whistleblower, saying, you guys are not complying with the law. And the board's response to that is, okay, you don't like the way we're doing, we're not going to have any meetings. Today was the first membership meeting since last May. There were a lot of fits and starts along the way, meetings that were called, no quorum, arguments, canceled meetings, oversight hearing called by Amanda Shelton. I guess maybe I should be a little charitable towards Amanda. Maybe the reason she didn't want to vote on Bill 52 was she just didn't want to get involved. Kind of like when her committee was holding an oversight over the Visitors Bureau, and she'd been out of town, but she came back from her trip early, and 6 minutes before the meeting was to start, she canceled the meeting. Maybe it was just that, well, she didn't want to get involved. Maybe she's conflict phobia. If there's going to be a conflict, count me out, guys. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to hold oversights, etc.
There's an oversight meeting? Pass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Carl Gutierrez, and he shared something with me that's going to run in the paper on Monday, so I won't steal his thunder on that, but I will pull one word out of what he is going to be saying in Sunday's Daily News that was the key of what he said at the beginning of the meeting. And without laying too much of a foundation, Carl said the key word here is magnanimity. Magnanimity, hard word to say. To be magnanimous means to be generous. And to be magnanimous means to be generous even when you prevailed. You know, we all know that nobody likes a poor loser, but even worse is a poor winner. So Carl's saying, let's not sort it out that way. Let's be magnanimous, which is kind of a way of saying we need to go forward now. We need to put away the old stuff and move forward, which kind of set the tone, I think, for the meeting. So they had the election of officers, and they did it in a very professional way. I would almost suspect that they called in Maria Pangilinan as a consultant, because if anybody has been able to run elections properly in the last 60 years, it's been Maria Pangilinan. And this one was very nicely done. 4 new directors were elected. I suppose I should tell you who those 4 new directors were, figuring you're going to tune in on Monday anyhow. Or maybe I shouldn't. What do you think, Jose?
They're posted.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you who the new members are. 4 new members of the board are, the first one is Paula L.G. Monk, who's, in spite of her last name, probably identifies as a female, even though her name is Monk, who is the United Manager of Sales for Guam and Micronesia for, unfortunately, I had to do a screenshot of this, so I didn't get the rest of it. We've got George Chu, Executive Vice President of TAN Holdings. That's a big outfit. We have Joaquin Cook, President and CEO of Bank of Guam. Now, I didn't have a chance to, I don't know if Joaquin was even there. I didn't have a chance to chat with him. But perhaps the reason that Joaquin ran for the Visitors Bureau Board is because the consigliere is too tied up with family business. What do you think, Jose?
I'm going to have to agree with you.
Yeah. And then we've got Jeffrey Jones, who is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Triple J. So it's Monk, Chu, Cook, and Jones. So it looks like the key here, if you want to be on the Visitors Bureau Board, is if you got a name like Klitzkie, you don't have a chance. You have to have a name that means something, that has a meaning to it. So you could translate it into a foreign language, you know, like Joaquin Cook could be Joaquin Cocinero, right? And let's see, Paul, I don't know how to say Monk. I suppose Chelu, brother, right?
Brother.
Yeah. Anyhow, I guess it's a good thing I never ran for the board.
I found it interesting in the Guam PDN's descriptions of all these new members. Only one, we get to know his family heritage, and that is Joaquin Cook, who they pointed out is Governor Lulian Guerrero's son. But nobody else, we don't know anybody else's relatives in this list, except for his.
Yeah. I guess I missed that. Good call, Jose. Good eyes. Okay, moving on to the next item on the card. We've got the Chief of Police versus Captain Kim Santos. Police Chief Stephen Ignacio says he reviewed the 50-plus page search warrant unsealed in the District Court of Guam last month. The case is linked to retired Guam Police Department officer John Boom Montanonia. I wonder if he came down and testified on Sabina's bill.
52.
He should have, yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I like the way you titled today's show. That bill was a ticking time bomb.
Sure was.
Yeah. John Boom Montanonia is currently awaiting his day in federal court. Montanonia's case involves an FBI financial and drug trafficking investigation and a little jury tampering thrown in there too. The documents also named retired police captain Kenneth Montanonia, who led the Mandania Drug Task Force, and current police captain Kim Santos. Now, this was all really heavy duty. There's some really serious stuff that a member of the FBI subscribed and sworn to. If he's not telling the truth, he's committed perjury on papers filed with a federal district court. Now, I would think that this is more than just idle over the back fence gossip. And here's how seriously it was treated. Ignacio, there are no criminal matters we are investigating regarding any of the current police officers named in this document. Well, then I have to ask, why in the hell not? What's going on here? KOAM News. Why the need for the internal affairs investigation then? Now, inside the police department, you have the criminal investigation section and you have an internal affairs section. And the criminal guys go out and will investigate any crime. It doesn't matter who committed. Police officer, citizen, and that's what police, either you're a police officer or a citizen. And if there's an allegation that a cop committed a crime, criminal investigation guys go out and investigate them just like they would in any other criminal case. And then you have internal affairs, which is made up of police officers, and they investigate police officers when there's a possibility that those officers may have committed misconduct. Committing a crime is misconduct, but there are other forms of misconduct, conduct in becoming a police officer, improper treatment of members of the public, things that go against the rules of the police department but are not crimes. So if it's alleged that a police officer committed a crime, there will be parallel investigations. Internal affairs will conduct theirs, criminal investigations will conduct theirs. And you can wind up with a situation where no one is charged with a crime, but a cop could actually get fired on the basis of the finding of an internal affairs investigation. But there's a huge difference between internal affairs and criminal. And that comes from a case called Garrity versus New Jersey. And what it holds is this. A police officer brought before an internal investigation, if it's done right, can be ordered to answer all of the questions that the internal affairs investigator asks, even if the answer to those questions are self-incriminating. Where were you on the night of July 4th? Well, I was with my girlfriend. Did you have your service weapon with you? I'm not going to answer that on the ground. You're ordered to answer. And if you don't answer, you could be fired for insubordination. All you got to do is say, I'm not going to answer that question. I'll turn this over to the chief, and the chief can fire you for insubordination. Whoa! What about the Fifth Amendment? No person shall ever be held to be a witness against himself. Well, here's how it works. if you are ordered to answer in an internal affairs investigation, those answers cannot be used against you in the criminal case. That's why these internal affairs investigations can be so valuable. Maybe you can't convict the guy, but at least you can get him off the police force one way or the other. But for the chief of police to say, we're not investigating, there are no criminal investigations here, but if he is doing an internal affairs investigation, I can understand it, but he maybe needs to be able to explain what I just explained. Next question. Do you believe there's any police corruption in your department under your watch? Ignacio, that's a very broad stroke statement for you to ask me if there's any police corruption. Well, yes, it is. That is just saying, do you believe officers are corrupt? No, I don't. I believe there are a lot of hardworking police officers that come in and do their job with pride. Not answering the question. A lot of, not all, right? Now the investigation will include countless interviews on a case that goes back more than a half decade. For now, the chief encourages the public to report any problems they encounter with his office. We will take any tip regarding corrupt officers or allegations of corrupt officers, and we'll look into it. Yeah, I think perhaps the chief really needs some lessons in communication, how to make a point and then to get his point across. He needs to say, if I thought that there was a corrupt officer in this department, I would be investigating that officer right now. Are there any investigations going on right now, Chief? No, but there will be as soon as, if I determine that there's grounds to start. That's what he needs to say. We need some assurance here. Not like, well, the first thing he said was, wow, that's a lot of stuff to study. And then, well, yeah, I studied it, but we're not prosecuting. I mean, he's just sending all the wrong signals. I'm looking for a chief of police who's out there looking for bad guys every day of the week, not so concerned about calling in officers to guard his motorcycle. And that's the reputation he established, borrowing his own phrase, from the get-go. Okay, next item on the card is I'm going to go to McNinch versus the First Amendment. It's not next on the card. But I think I can wrap it up in the 10 minutes after we leave Churchill Downs.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarajan, a house in Dedido, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Okay, so here we are, 6 furlongs, and I cross the finish line and wrap up another week here on Tall Tales. And this is a column that ran, one of McNinch's columns that ran in the Daily News, and it's called McNinch, First Amendment is a Difficult Concept for Some. And I'm going to say, yeah, apparently for McNinch himself. And I've titled this column, McNinch versus the Scottsboro Boys, because he starts out by saying, in 1932, the Supreme Court case, Powell versus Alabama, required legal counsel for persons in death penalty cases. And the Scottsboro Boys were some black kids that hopped a freight in Alabama, and they got a really bum rap for murder. But back in the Democrat Jim Crow South, all you had to do was have a body who obviously was a homicide, and a black person in the presence of that body, you knew who did it. So the Scottsboro Boys somehow wound up with a guy named Leibowitz, a famous New York criminal law lawyer, as counsel after the Supreme Court decided they were entitled to counsel. And it turned out that they were not only not guilty, but they were innocent. A very famous case, the Scottsboro Boys. So McNinch starts out with that. In 1932, Supreme Court case, Powell versus Alabama, required counsel for persons in death penalty cases. Before that, a person could receive a death sentence with no help. I often say that Guam should consider passing a law for capital punishment. In the now dormant draft of the Guam Constitution, approved by the Congress, Article 2 contains a Bill of Rights. The death penalty is prohibited under Section 13. Of course, I really don't have an opinion about the death penalty. Why should he? Why should anyone have an opinion about the death penalty, Jose? Unless you're the one who's condemned to death, why would you care? Is that just kind of a matter of social conscience? I got to tell you, I am against the death penalty. Yeah, I'm against the death penalty for three things. It's statism. I want to hold the powers of the state to the bare minimum necessary to provide efficient, effective service, government service under the rule of law on at least a break-even basis. I don't want the state taking anybody's life. Second, we've seen we know how final the death penalty is. No matter what mistakes were made in the process, if you finally figure out you did something wrong, too bad. You don't get a mulligan on death penalty, right? And then third, we're all too much aware of the mistakes that have been made and people who are on trial for cases that could have resulted in death penalties, people who have been convicted and are literally saved by the bell. You know, when they're getting ready to stick a needle in their arm and they get that call from the governor saying, hang on, guys. So I'm against it. And it's just kind of strange that McNinch would say, I don't have an opinion on the death penalty. Okay, anyhow. And then he goes on to say, of course, I really don't have an opinion. I just use it as a device to help young people think. It's amazing how many people will openly oppose the death penalty on the one hand and openly defend to the death the concept of late-term selective abortion on the other. Now, he could have just said abortion, right? It's kind of like, if it's not late, maybe, right? Yeah.
Very specific in his description.
Yeah. If the last sentence irritated you, welcome to the First Amendment. Well, that last sentence did kind of, for the reasons that you and I just expressed. But then he goes on to say, and the last sentence irritated you, welcome to the First Amendment. What does this have to do with the First Amendment? Nothing. Enjoy living in the United States. Read an article countering my opinion and take the bait. What does this have to do with the First Amendment? Let me get out my magic tool here called the United States Constitution. and refresh recollections on what the United States Constitution actually says. Article 1, the First Amendment, and this is what it says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, etc. Congress shall make no law abridging the right of freedom of speech. So, what does this have to do with my sitting here on the radio saying, you know, anybody who is pro-abortion is also pro-death? There's no... Congress can't make laws that prescribe my right to free speech. That's what it says. But my exercise of free speech is not dependent on the First Amendment. My right of free speech is dependent on Congress not having made any laws. So, you know, if you want to defend free speech, defend free speech. If you want to argue about the First Amendment, then talk about the freedom of speech clause in the First Amendment. But don't equate the one with the other, because this goes back to the op-ed piece that I just read. It sows confusion amongst the populace. People need to understand that in a free society such as ours, they have a right to speak out. And the government can't pass a law telling them that they can't speak out. So like every other right that you have, it's not an absolute right. You speak out and you slander somebody, it might cost you money. But still, you get to speak out. And in the Pentagon Papers case, the Supreme Court said, even what you're disclosing may be a matter that is held confidential by the national government. If you got it, you can publish it. Remember that, Jose? Yeah, Pentagon Papers. Somebody, Ellsberg versus somebody. So the First Amendment protects free speech. It doesn't grant free speech, because we know that, maybe with one exception, our Bill of Rights is not a grant of rights, it's negative rights, protecting rights. So I'm going to switch over and say goodbye to our president. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A year of pain and sorrow. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. That's how Ukraine's President Zelensky describes the last 12 months since the invasion 1 year ago today by Russian forces. But he predicts that 2023 will be the year of Ukraine's victory. In Kyiv this morning, church bells playing the Ukrainian national anthem. President Biden will meet virtually with the leaders of the G7 countries today, promising more sanctions.
The United States will implement sweeping sanctions against key sectors that generate revenue for Putin, go after more Russian banks, Russia's defense and technology industry, and actors in third-party countries that are attempting to backfill and evade our sanctions.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. The United Nations General Assembly has passed a resolution calling on Russia to end the invasion and withdraw its forces. China has offered to broker a ceasefire and peace talks. Federal transportation safety investigators say a failed wheel bearing is likely what caused that toxic train derailment 3 weeks ago in eastern Ohio.
Sensors said the bearings and axle heated up on the 23rd car, 215 degrees over 30 miles, a critical stage. An alarm alerted the engineer as the train was slowed and auto brakes kicked in. The wheel bearings failed and the train derailed. The 23rd car was hauling plastic pellets, which combined with the hot axle to start the fire.
Fox's Mike Tobin, Transportation Secretary Buttigieg visited East Palestine, Ohio yesterday for the first time.
Had a good conversation with the mayor, who is clearly very focused on supporting this community and helping the community move forward.
The secretary admitted he should have gone sooner. John Dilbeck was executed last evening in Florida. He'd killed a woman during a 1990 carjacking years after murdering a sheriff's deputy. But in his final words said Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis has done a lot worse. America is listening to Fox News.
It all started with the brutal murder of a young married couple. Now, more than 40 years after the couple was found, investigators and forensic genealogists are cracking the case wide open to uncover a stunning second mystery.
Where's the baby? I said, well, wait, he had a baby?
We cross the country speaking with victims' families and those close to the case as we ask, what about Holly?
I just want to know what happened.
Available on FoxNewsPodcasts.com and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts commercial-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Dana Perino, Kennedy, Ben Domenech, The Duffys, and many more. Subscribe now by going to FoxNewsPodcasts.com. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
Former South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh expected back on the witness stand for a second day today in his double murder trial.
Murdaugh spent hours on the stand answering questions about his opioid addiction, his finances, about stealing millions from clients, even being disbarred, but he denied he was desperate enough to kill.
I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime.
The disgraced South Carolina lawyer on trial for allegedly killing 52-year-old Maggie Murdaugh and their 22-year-old son, Paul, or Paw Paw, as he kept calling him. Murdaugh actually admitted to lying to cops about being at the estate's kennels earlier in the evening on June 7th, the day when the bodies were later found. He also said that he initially lied about being at the dog kennels because of his years-long addiction to opioids, which he said actually makes him paranoid.
Fox's Kevin Cork. Power crews are working through the night in southern Michigan trying to restore service. Now about 728,000 homes and businesses still off the grid because of the Wednesday night ice storm. The mountains east of Los Angeles could get 2 to 5 feet of snow today, varying with the elevation. There'll be no legalized magic mushrooms in Utah.
The Utah Senate's Health and Human Services Committee neither advanced nor rejected the measure, effectively ending its chances of passage as lawmakers prepare to adjourn for the year. Proponents had hoped the success of the state's medical marijuana